Oh! Oh. Oh, seriously? Again? Well, today marks the 2-year anniversary of Dude, You Haven't Played This Game. Now, some of you may have seen my first episode. Man, what a train wreck. This show has grown in so many ways, and while it is a working piece of art, it makes me embarrassed thinking about all the mistakes that I made back in my very first review. The first episode was way too long, and there was too much time spread out throughout the jokes, that most of which weren't even funny. Originally, the concept for this show was more of a let's play than a review show, but I eventually got my bearings and, well, 2 years later, here we are. It's such a shame because I always wanted to go back and redo my review on one of my most beloved video game experiences of all time. I figured now is a good time to go back to the past and revisit Metroid, a title that is just as full of mystery as it is innovation. So, with that said, strap yourselves into your gunships. This is Metroid.
You've heard the phrase being bigger than your britches? Well, Metroid's got a reputation that's more vast than your solar system. Originally, this game released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1987, though Japan got it first a year prior on the Famicom Disk System. So, what do you need to know about Metroid that you didn't already suffer through in my first review? What more do we have to cover? Well, let me go over the basics before we talk about why the original Metroid is one of the most influential video games ever crafted. The first few screens of Metroid tell a tale with very little background knowledge. We know there's an emergency, something called a Metroid on planet, Zebeth? We know we have to stop something called Mother Brain, but who or what is the Galaxy Federal Police? What does M510 have anything to do with this? Who or what is this thing?
Well, that's your character. In this game you take on the role of Samus Aran, supreme bounty hunter and all-around badass hottie.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that is a woman hidden under that spacesuit, but come on, the game's almost 30 years old. If you didn't know about this spoiler by now, then... Oh man, this game's almost 30 years old. I'm 30 years old. I need to drown my sorrows in food.
Here's what really happened. The manual states that in the year 2000 of the history of the cosmos, whatever that means, the world is in an age of prosperity. However, the age of chilling out Max and relaxing all cool is put on thin ice, as space pirates appear to begin attacking every which way they can. Fast forward to the year 20x5. Space pirates stole a cargo of deactivated unknown life form.
Metroids.
And are exposing them to beta rays for 24 hours to help reanimate, leading to mass replication in an attempt to bring new chaos to a different planet. Metroid's previous victims, the planet SR-388, and the Chozo, a peaceful bird-like race that raised Samus.
Well, okay, that part's not in this first game, but it is important to know, and it is considered Metroid lore. You're gonna make me sad again and think about my age. I need more food.
Samus Aran is employed by the Galactic Federation to hunt down and destroy every Metroid on the planet and shut down the source of regeneration, a mechanical monstrosity known as Mother Brain, permanently. That's the story.
Phew! Such a huge story for such a little manual. I wonder what newer games manuals look like. They must be so tiny and have the hugest stories. Here's another Metroid game. Alright, let's check out the story on this one.
The baby, and the baby, or the baby, of the baby, or the baby, baby.
Metroid was one of the black sheep of Nintendo's first few big-budget blockbusters on the NES. It was dark, atmospheric, and lonely. The series was built on 6-year-olds like myself, getting trapped at the bottom of a bottomless pit and hitting reset after hours of desperate jumping.
Mom, she won't go any higher.
As children, playing Metroid didn't give the same adventurous sword and sorcery whimsy that Zelda did, nor did it offer the plucky Jumpman jumpy jumps of Mario. Metroid kept us inside, scribbling passwords down so we didn't lose our place. Metroid kept us inside a confusing maze of walls, digging for tools to advance our weapons. Metroid forced us to rely on our patience. It wasn't just an adventure, it was an experience. Now that may not sound like much fun to most, but to many, the game represented a challenge and a yearning to explore. It was a brutally difficult game, but for all the wrong reasons. See, we look at Metroid now for being difficult in a different light than we did as kids. Many gamers look back on the first title, as compared with newer Metroid games, and scoff. No in-game map? No save points? But it was a brilliant experiment that paid off. Gamers that got hooked by Metroid wanted to discover its mystery and unravel its confusing labyrinth. It was a stepping stone for what the series would be, and because of that, it should be praised for being an innovator, not just bashed as an inferior prequel to fan-favorite Super Metroid.
The word Metroid is a portmanteau of the words Metro and Android. Hey, it was the 80s. Portmanteaus were hip.
Speaking of hip, Hirokazu Hip Tanaka made Metroid an experience with his stellar score. The music in Metroid was unlike anything I'd ever heard growing up. Mario took on the more big band classic jazz sound, with inspiration from reggae and funk. Zelda was clearly inspired by Koji Kondo's love for a thrilling orchestrated adventure. But Metroid? Well, how do you write music for space? You give it no music, you give it a voice. Bleeps and bloops crafted voices for creatures skittering across floors, flying monsters, and subterranean crater mazes. Metroid's soundtrack allowed players to fully latch themselves onto something that didn't sound too happy-go-lucky or eager. It was dark, and painted a portrait of feeling alone in a deep place with nowhere to go. It's one of the few examples in video games where a composer wrote something to make you experience what you feel, not the other way around.
We've talked a lot about what Metroid gets right, but we haven't talked a lot about what Metroid gets wrong. Passwords. I want simple passwords, like Narpus Sword, or Justin Bailey, or Engage Ridley, mother... Shut my mouth! What? I'm just talking about Mother Brain!
Plenty of people have uncovered passwords that are inside jokes to this day, something that the Famicom Disk System owners never got to experience, thanks to the system's ability to use save states. Justin Bailey gave gamers the chance to see Samus in a one-piece bathing suit, along with the green hair? I'd go more into depth about the origins of Justin Bailey, but after all the reading and studying and countless hours of pondering, I've determined something.
Nope, don't care enough.
Besides, it's probably something as stupid as her being just in a bathing suit. Wait a minute, don't they call one-piece bathing suits Baileys in Australia or England?
Oh my... Shut my mouth! What? I said I'm just talking about Mother Brain!
One of the biggest fan game techniques started thanks to Metroid. Gamers began to speedrun the game, trying to complete it faster to get better and better times. The game helped inspire this, all thanks to the removal of more of Samus's clothing with each faster playthrough, changing her from helmetless to swimsuit one piece, and eventually to bikini. This was always something I thought was awkward as the years went on, because Samus received a lot of praise for stepping up for women's rights in video games. It's worth noting that before Samus Aran arrived, Miss Pac-Man was all that represented women in gaming. Over the years, we've tried to piece together anything we could to learn more about this fascinating character, and while some people may not like what they see, there's a lot of online debate about who Samus should be. Well, my answer is to let her be the symbol for the female gender, a woman who can somehow roll up into a tiny ball in deep space in combat space armor and melt all our hearts one roll at a time. Metroid map layout of the planet Zebeth.
Alright, screw this. I've been calling it ZBs my entire life. None of this Zebeth stuff or Zeebs. No, it's ZBs. Freaking ZBs.
The map is broken up into 5 sections: Brinstar, Norfair, Torian, Kraid's Hideout, and Ridley's Hideout. Brinstar always felt like the main hub of the game, giving players access to all the other sections at various parts of the game. There were choices to be made. Do I attempt to gather a gaggle of missiles, or maybe just head right down to Ridley? Should I go back up and get the Various suit first? The more you explored, the more you'd find, and the more you'd discover, the more powerful you'd become. Metroid was famous for being one of the first video games to have permanent power-ups. Before Metroid, games were all about temporary power-ups. Once Samus gained her items, she couldn't lose them unless it was something that replaced something else. In the case of the Wave Beam and the Ice Beam, you could always go back and grab the beam you needed when the time was right. This added a certain strategy to balancing your weapons in the game, as there were spots one would work and the other wouldn't.
No, it's not until those wonderful sequels that she began forgetting where she put all her items.
Despite this game's gimmick leading to future problems for storytelling for the series, it works exceptionally well here, and writers didn't have to worry about writing themselves into a corner while trying to figure out why Samus loses her items for the 20th time. Some of the power-ups were just so cool. I mean, the screw attack was mesmerizing to watch, an epileptic meltdown of pixels that still to this day remains one of my most coveted of favorite items. Bombs got players out of sticky situations and helped them reach new places to explore. The Wave Beam allowed new ways to attack, and the Ice Beam?
Just cool, Daddy-o. Just cool.
Missiles invoke such a sense of power in the game. Plowing Kraid and Ridley with missiles was a challenge, but the payoff was worth it. You'd get to visit Mother Brain, but not before taking on the Metroids themselves, and holy crap, those suckers are fast. I remember traveling down these halls as a small child, terrified of the next twist and turn of these blazing alien jellyfish. Metroid was a thinking person's game. It required a map, a pen, and a paper. It cleverly mixed logical thought with exploration to form one ambient, lonely mess of a video game, and one I can play again and again. Metroid on the Nintendo is not perfect. There's no built-in map system, there's tons of graphical sprite mismatches, and the entire thing is extremely confusing. The password system is archaic, and it's a moody, punishing game.
But it's my game. It's a game that I cut my teeth on time and time again. It taught me about some of the most important gaming secrets and strategies that I still use to this day. It taught me that it's not important what's inside a bounty hunter's armor that counts, but if it's a hot blonde, roll with it.